everyone. Today, I'll discuss the latest in Ukraine. Summarizing the available public information concisely and using maps. I'll deliver it to you quickly and in an easy-to-understand way. Thank you for your support. If you subscribe and enable notifications, you'll get notified when a new video is out. You can also watch my previous videos. Check them out in the playlist too. The situation in Ukraine. It has been 1,195 days since Russia invaded Kyiv. First, let's talk about general matters. According to the latest announcement from the Ukrainian military's General Staff, which was just released, the Russian military's losses are 1,100 soldiers, 7 tanks, 8 armored combat vehicles, 48 artillery pieces, 1 multiple rocket launcher, 1 air defense system, 126 drones, 12 aircraft, and 145 other vehicles. As I reported yesterday, the loss of aircraft remains the same, and there have been reports of 146 ground battles across the entire front. Russian military losses have exceeded 990,000. This news segment covers the Ukraine-Russia situation and is often paired with battle maps. You can also use the chapter feature on YouTube to watch the parts you need. First, a day has passed since a large number of Russian strategic bombers were destroyed, and the fallout is spreading. The OSINT account is analyzing the losses using satellite images and synthetic aperture radar images, and OSINT analyst Tatarigami is. He analyzed that the Soviet-era Tu-160 Blackjack, Tu-95 Bear and Tu-22 M3 Backfire are no longer in production, and that before the attack, only about 70 to 90 operational aircraft remained. He stated that even losing just 10 of them would be a huge blow, expressing the magnitude of the damage this time. On the other hand, the governor of Irkutsk Oblast announced that residents who tried to stop the Ukrainian drone attack by throwing stones at the drones would be rewarded. The governor said he highly values the actions of citizens who tried to stop the drones and praised the residents for their vigilance. Second, Associate Professor Roman Sheremeta of the Weatherhead School of Management at Case Western Reserve University in the United States pointed out that, regarding Ukraine's current spiderweb operation, a second phase of the operation is awaiting Russia. According to him, the first phase was damaging more than 40 aircraft at 4 air bases, and the second phase of the operation is to make the details of this operation public. By revealing that drones were hidden in trailers inside Russian territory this time, all cargo trucks in Russia will become a threat to the Russian military, and all drivers will become suspects. The authorities will have to inspect and monitor domestic transportation routes, monitor tens of thousands of kilometers along highways, and strengthen security. Civilian logistics will stagnate, and transportation companies will come under intense public scrutiny. This will drive up Russia's logistics costs, put a strain on infrastructure, and cause internal friction. It was pointed out that this would amount to attacking the entire Russian system itself. Third, the Kumakas Economic Analysis Center, which is close to the Russian authorities, admitted that the Russian economy has entered a recession. According to a presentation prepared by Dmitry Belousov, the brother of the Russian Minister of Defense, it was analyzed that the Russian economy has moved from stagnation to adjustment, and is likely showing signs of transitioning into a recession. This conclusion is based on a comprehensive analysis of changes in individual industry data, investment, households, and trade. It points out that the Russian economy as a whole is entering a recession, rather than experiencing only partial adjustments or setbacks. Mr. Belousov warned that consumption is stagnating, with declines and sluggishness seen in all segments. High interest rates, uncertainty due to the war, and an unstable ruble exchange rate are putting pressure on the economy, and especially, investment activity is rapidly decreasing. As many of you may know, when inflation and economic recession occur at the same time, it is called stagflation. In such a situation, neither monetary policy nor fiscal policy is effective, and the Russian economy will remain sluggish for a long period to come. Here's the battlefield situation in each region. I'll focus on areas with changes in the battlefield situation. If you switch to full screen on the big display, you can follow those changes along with the dates. Also, from various cases around the world, using expressions optimized for YouTube, such as euphemisms for the Russian side and Russian forces, English and Ukrainian audio tracks will be released a few hours later for people abroad who want to use this as a reference. Northeast, Sumy, Kursk, and Kharkiv sectors. From Sumy, targeted by Russian forces for their summer offensive. Kursk, Belgorod. I'll report on the situation in the Kharkiv sector. The weather in Sumy, which affects the operation, is clear. The high temperature is 25 degrees and the low is 12 degrees. Today's weather forecast is also clear. In these areas, Russian forces carried out 19 attacks in the Kursk area and 3 attacks in the Kharkiv area. Sumy area. In this area, the Russian army has launched an offensive towards Sumy, and their immediate goal is believed to be pushing the front line to Oleksiivka and Yablunivka. However, since the Ukrainian army is blocking their advance at Belovody, the offensive operation has faced difficulties from the very beginning. The Ukrainian army is believed to have a plan to first use drones to block the advance in the scattered settlements on the plains, then inflict losses on Russian forces in the forests of Sumy, and finally cause heavy losses in urban combat. However, as summer will soon end and the collapse of the Russian economy is also approaching, the Russian army does not have much time left. On the other hand, Demchenko, the spokesperson for the Ukrainian border guard, said on national television that the situation is becoming difficult and complicated. He reported that until now, the targets of the attacks had been Basivka and Zhuravka, but the assault units are now deploying in a new direction centered around Khotin and Yunakiivka, and that Russian forces are being dispersed in 2 directions. He explained that the enemy keeps appearing one after another and is being destroyed one after another, describing the situation as a series of massive infantry wave attacks. First, in Andriivka to the west, according to geolocated footage, Russian forces are attempting to advance with infantry, and the Ukrainian military is responding with drones. What you're seeing first is footage from the 103rd Border Guard Brigade of the Ukrainian military, observing a small group of Russian soldiers walking at the location shown on the map. On the battle situation map, I updated it to show that the contested area has expanded by 2.2 kilometers up to this location. Second, meanwhile, on the northeastern attack axis of Sumy, Russian forces seem to be struggling to break through Belovody, but even so, they are trying to advance toward Yablunivka on multiple attack axes. According to geolocated footage, Russian forces have entered Ukrainian positions in the eastern outskirts of Yablunivka, and the Ukrainian forces are responding with drones. This footage, filmed by the Ukrainian side, shows Russian forces. On the battle map, it has been updated to show that the contested area has expanded by 2.4 kilometers up to this location. In other areas such as Kursk and Kharkiv, Russian attacks did not lead to any advances, and in the Belgorod area, there were no reports of ground battles today either. Northeastern region, Luhansk area. Eastern region, Chasiv Yar area. I'll report on the situation from Kupiansk to the Chasiv Yar area. In these areas, the Russians, in the Kupiansk area, 10 times, in the Svatovo-Kremina area, 20 times, around Siversk, 8 times, and in the Chasiv Yar area, 5 times. There were 11 attacks in the direction of Donetsk, but the Russian attacks did not lead to any advances, and there was a change in the Chasiv Yar area that I will tell you about next. Chasiv Yar area. In this area, the Russians are carrying out attacks with reinforced troops. In Stopochki, south of the city, according to geolocated footage, they have reached a factory-like area north of the settlement, and the Ukrainian forces are responding with drones. This footage is from the Phoenix team of the Ukrainian Army's 5th Assault Brigade, showing Ukrainian drones and Russians riding in a strange-looking vehicle, interacting together. On the battle situation map, it has been updated to show that the contested area has expanded by 700 meters up to this location. Southeastern Donetsk region, Pokrovsk, Kostiantynopil. I'll report on the situation in the Velika Novosilka sector. In these directions, Russian forces attacked 47 times in the Pokrovsk direction and carried out 14 attacks in the Kostiantynopil and Velika Novosilka directions. Pokrovsk direction. In this area, Russian forces are concentrating their forces on the outskirts of Pokrovsk and launching attacks. Ukrainian military spokesperson Trefbov said about the situation in this area that the enemy is gradually trying to advance with infantry and motorcycles, but is reducing the number of personnel being deployed. He reported that enemy losses, which were about 1,000 per week 3 months ago, have now decreased to 700, meaning the number of enemy losses has dropped by about 30% compared to before. Meanwhile, in Yablunivka, which is located 35 kilometers northeast of Pokrovsk, Russian forces conducted reconnaissance and may have identified the Ukrainian military's defensive setup. They are carrying out drone attacks within the settlement to keep the Ukrainian forces in check. According to footage with location data, it was observed that Russian forces carried out an attack on the Ukrainian military positions in the settlement using a fiber optic drone, indicating that this location is the front line for the Ukrainian forces. The situation map has been updated to show that the contested area has expanded by 700 meters up to this location. In Yablunivka, the Vichok River flows on the north side of the settlement, and the Ukrainian military's defensive line is positioned along the river to the north. Attacks from the west could result in significant losses. However, since the Ukrainian forces are deployed and defending on the southern side, Russian forces appear to be concentrating their forces for a breakthrough from the west first. Second, in Popovyar, which is 10 kilometers to the west, the Russian forces attacked using armored vehicles and motorcycles, but they were repelled. This footage is from the 36th Marine Brigade of the Ukrainian military, and it shows the area near the location on the map. In this area, during last week's offensive, the Russians made significant advances and at one point pushed all the way into the settlement of Popovyar. However, after that, the Ukrainian forces succeeded in driving the Russians out of the settlement, and the battle map was updated to show that the occupied territory in this area had been reduced by 500 meters, back to behind this location. Other than that, the Ukrainian forces have been stopping the Russian attacks from advancing, and there have been no updates to the battle map. The Velika Novosilka area. In this area, there was a fierce attack recently in Novopil, which we've been reporting on. According to geolocated footage, the Ukrainian forces launched a counter-offensive south of Novopil, entered the southern part of the settlement, and established positions there. This was based on the location of Russian artillery fire. I previously reported that the Russians occupied this location on May 31, but I have updated the information to reflect that the area under dispute has expanded, with the Russian-controlled area reduced by 150 meters. Rear area. Today as well, suspicious incidents have been reported in Russia and occupied areas. First, according to the Russian military, from yesterday to today, drone attacks were reported, 34 in Kursk, 4 in Bryansk, 14 in Belgorod, and others in Oryol, Lipetsk, and Tambov, and they claim to have shot them all down. Among them, at the Borisoglebsk military airfield in Voronezh, although there is no video footage, according to local telegram channels, explosions were heard from the night of the 2nd until this morning. According to local residents, it appears that there were attacks on the aircraft repair factory and the military airfield. If I find out more about this, I will let you know again. Second, in Krasnogorsk near Moscow, a fire broke out at a factory that manufactures rubber boots and galoshes. In the footage, you can see flames and thick black smoke rising. This location is only about 10 kilometers from the presidential residence, and it is reported that the smoke can be seen from a wide area of Moscow. On social media, there are several posts attempting to suggest a connection to President Putin. In the southern Zaporizhzhia region and the southern Kherson region, the Russians launched 2 attacks in these areas, but both were repelled by the Ukrainian forces, and there were no changes to the battle map. In addition, regarding the ceasefire negotiations held in Istanbul on Monday, as expected, there were few results, and it is reported that only an agreement on the exchange of prisoners was reached. Diplomatic expert Volodymyr Zhirko analyzed the background, saying that President Putin is cornered and cannot agree to a ceasefire. She gave the following reasons. She believes the economic crisis in Russia, falling crude oil prices, and mounting losses will eventually force them to negotiate. However, stopping the war isn't in President Putin's interest right now. If he does that, people will question why the war started. What are we fighting for? There will be many questions from Russia's elite, such as what has been accomplished. Putin can't answer any of them. It was pointed out that he is now cornered and can neither move forward nor retreat. Also, Ms. Karsten, a former member of the American CIA and now a security expert, made a similar point, saying that as the number of casualties increases, the likelihood of sharing the same fate as Adolf Hitler is rising. His close aides are divided, just like when Hitler was defeated in his conquest of Europe. She predicted his future, saying that he is stuck in exactly the same type of unsustainable quagmire. That's all for today. If you have any thoughts on the situation analysis or the news, if you have updates, please leave them in the comments. Lastly, this channel has a sub-channel. There are also related Twitter, Note, Telegram, and Nico Duga accounts. On Telegram, you can watch videos for advanced viewers. On Note, you can read daily battle reports for free, and on Nico Duga, election videos up until last August are posted. If anything happens, we will notify our viewers through these media, so please subscribe to or follow at least one of the channels. The links are in the description. Thank you very much for watching. ございました。